Welcome to the House Doctor. Today, I'm going to be tiling a laundry room floor. Ceramic tile is not hard at all. Anybody can do it, and I'm going to show you how you can do it too. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any future episodes and other projects where I'll be showing you other things you can do around the house. Hit the bell, you'll get a notification every time a video comes up. Let's get started tiling. Probably the most tedious part of laying tile is figuring out your layout. You want it so it's pleasing to the eye and you don't have lots of little tiny cuts all over the place. The tile in this laundry room is going to flow into the kitchen. Normally you would do the main room first, but the laundry room had to be done first in this situation because there's no wash tub in this house, and doing any kind of project is really frustrating when you don't have a wash tub. So that's why the laundry room was done first. So I have the layout that I want, checked everything. I'm going to have some small pieces on the edges of the room, but that's okay. I'm not concerned about it because the washing machine, the dryer are going to be in here, lots of other things. It's more important that it looks right in the other room. Before I pick up my tiles, I want to take a minute to make a template to make the cuts easier. So I'm going to pull out my spacers and I'm going to take a straight edge. I'm going to make a line from corner to corner, and this is because this room is diagonal. And then I'm going to go over to the next tile and do the same thing. Draw a line, and now I just need to make a template that is this size. That will account for my grout line and the distance of the tiles on a diagonal. If we were going to lay this tile out parallel to the wall, we wouldn't have to make this kind of measurement. We could just measure the tile and include grout line spacing. But with diagonal, it's much easier to do it this way. So let me go cut a template. Okay, here's the measuring gauge that I cut. It's just a piece of plywood, and I cut it slightly oversized to account for some spacing along the edge. And the way we're going to use this is a little piece in the corner, put this up against the wall, mark this tile, and when we cut that little piece, it'll fit perfectly right there. Alright, I'm going to lay out a few tiles, use the gauge to mark them, and show you how the cutting works. So you need to have your field tiles or your tiles in the middle of the room laid out. And then you take the tiles that you want to cut and line them up one tile away from the wall and line them up right on top of the field tiles. And you take your gauge, put it up against the wall, and mark your tile. Doesn't really matter if you have one of those fancy tile saws or not. As you can see, you can cut it just as easily with the scoring and snapping cutter or a cheap wet saw that I've had for probably 20 years. Still waiting for it to break so I can buy a better one. All right, we can also use our gauge to make complex cuts, like around this doorway here with all these little jogs. So we just get up against the corner. And we don't have to be exactly perfect here because there's going to be a door jamb. Let me go cut this and we'll see how it fits. Alright, we're ready to start setting our tile in the mortar. When you're picking out your mortar, make sure that you pick out the right mortar. I'm using mortar that's specifically designed for ceramic tile and adhering to plywood. If you're going to use one of those decoupling membranes like Schluter or some other brand, make sure you have the right mortar and that works for your tile. Be very cautious of the pre-mixed mortar. You can buy it. Usually comes in, I think it's a 3-gallon bucket at the big box stores. It says mortar on there. You open it up, it looks like mortar. It's got grains in it, like there's sand or something in it. It's not mortar, it's glue. It's not going to hold up in any type of wet area, so absolutely do not use it in a shower. And you have to be very careful if you're going to use that with larger tiles, say a 12-inch tile. That pre-mixed mortar requires air to dry. That's why they can seal it up in a bucket and it doesn't dry. A 12-inch tile is going to prevent air from getting to the adhesive and allowing it to cure properly. If you use that pre-mixed adhesive in any type of wet area, such as a shower, maybe even a backsplash in a kitchen, any moisture gets through the grout lines and to that adhesive, it's going to fail and come off the wall. I have some lines marked on the floor where I'm going to start. I'm going to mix up the mortar and then we'll start laying some tile. When you're putting a mortar down, you want to make sure you push really hard against whatever material you're applying the tile to make sure it sticks well. And then you can start making your trowel marks. When you're troweling out your mortar, you don't want to make swirls like this. You want your lines to be nice and straight. I'll put a link in the description below of a video from the Tile Association where they show what happens if you trowel improperly. When you're putting your tile in, even if it's something like this that has a random pattern, pay attention to the back of the tile. There's almost always a little tiny arrow. You want those arrows all facing the same direction. Sometimes in the corner you may need to take a tile and just put a little mortar on the back of it just to make it a little easier for yourself, but still make sure you put the grooves. Clean out as much of the mortar in between the tiles as you can. It'll make the grouting process much easier. It's also a good idea to have a block of wood handy and just check how you're going from one tile to the next so you don't have any tile lipping, as they call it. If you need to, get yourself a tile adjuster. If you have to stop for any reason, take your trowel and scrape the mortar off the floor, get it nice and smooth. It's okay if it dries, you can reapply mortar right over top of the dried area. I let the tile sit overnight. The mortar's cured enough where I can grout. Before you start grouting, take some time, check in between all the tiles, make sure there's no mortar that's squeezed out that's going to be in the way of your grout. You can dig it out with a flat screwdriver, or I like to use a tool like this. It's a cotter key extractor. It's designed to extract cotter keys, but it works great for pulling mortar out from between tiles. When you're all finished cleaning up the mortar, get a vacuum, vacuum all the loose pieces out from between the tiles, and mix up your grout. When you put the grout down on the floor, you want to use your grout float and push it down into the joints as hard as you can. Get it in there really good. The better you get it in there, the better it's going to hold. And just start smearing it around. After you get it worked into the joints, you want to take your float and pull it off the tile at a 45-degree angle to the joint. The next part's a little tricky. You're going to want to let the grout set up till it's hard enough where you can wipe it with a sponge and it won't come out, but not set up so much that you can't clean the surface of the tiles. When you're ready to clean the grout off the floor, make sure you have a clean bucket of water and a very stiff sponge. Squeeze as much water out as you can. The idea here is to use the sponge to drag the grout and the sand, if you're using sanded grout, off the floor, and rinse the sponge out again in the bucket. You may have to go through this process 2 or 3 times. The last thing you want to do is take a rag of some sort and knock the haze off the tile. Again, you're not trying to get the floor completely clean at this point. You just want to get the haze off the tile so it doesn't stick and leave you with a mess. I like to use an old pair of jeans. Works great. There's no texture to it. Takes care of the haze, no problem. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. That way the next time I put out a video with more tips, you'll be sure to get them. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. I'll be sure to answer them. Thanks for watching.